So there is an example in here. When you get the slide deck, make sure you read through it. It's an example of what if you only depreciate through, for example, December 28th. So you're missing 3 days of depreciation. What happens and how do you handle it? For analytical accounting is one of those modules that's a little different. Did I skip the first slide? No. Okay. Analytical accounting, balance brought forward entries actually move from the 30,000 table to the 40,000 table. So it moves into a historical table. There's not a separate close routine per se for analytical accounting. It closes when you close GL. But sometimes people want their analytical data to have a balance brought forward, and some people want their analytical accounting data to be just each transaction. So when you close analytical accounting with GL, what happens is the year-end close process for GL automatically will take the AA transactions and push them into another table. You can select which dimensions you want to consolidate during the year-end close process. And that's what I was referring to before. If you want to consolidate anything, you actually have to select the dimensions that you want to consolidate. Balance sheet dimensions do roll forward, and P&L dimensions will close to retained earnings. So you can mark them to not if you want them to not do that. When you're getting ready to run a consolidation report for analytical accounting to move data to history, you can preview the report before you actually do the process. Oh, and there's an important note. There is a bug that requires a hotfix to be applied to FRX so that it can read the AA data from the table that the data gets moved to. Now, I know several of you guys on the call have already had that hotfix applied because you were not able to read your analytical accounting data once it moved to history. So if you are brand new to analytical accounting and you are in FRX and you can't see your historical AA data, let us know and we'll be able to apply that hotfix for you. For general ledger, backups are going to be the key. These 6 steps don't even begin to describe GL's backup. What we had happen once is one of our clients actually called for help for a year-end close, and we asked her, do you have a backup of GP? Because we won't help you unless you do. And the client actually said yes, and I've confirmed with IT. So we went ahead and started the year-end close process. And what happened was the client was not hosted with us, and she ran out of disk space in the middle of the close. So the close half finished. And it didn't half finish in a logical way. It kind of did some accounts, but not all accounts, and not in any particular order. So we said it's easy enough, we'll just restore from a backup. Because we identified that she ran out of disk space. She got more disk space. Her IT guys freed things up. When we had them restore from a backup, they actually had not, the backups had not been producing for 6 months. So we're going to definitely stress to you that prior to closing GL specifically, that you make sure that you have a backup. And if you're hosted with us, you email us and let us know, I'm about to close and I need a backup, a special backup. And we'll create a special backup for you and hold it for you. But you want to make sure that your retained earnings accounts are set up. You want to make sure your posting account types are correct. And you want to confirm that you have your fiscal period set up for the new year. And you also want to look at GL setup and make sure that there's certain checkboxes that need to get enabled. So I'm going to go through this with you. So in the GL setup window, something that you need to make sure of is that this maintain history, where it says accounts and transactions, you want to make sure that those two are checked. Because if you go through the year-end close process without those being maintained, the beginning balances just roll forward and all the history goes away for the account. And you don't want that. So you always go to GL Setup and make sure that Maintain History for accounts and transactions is set. Additionally, if you're using the close to divisional account segments, if your first segment means something and you're closing your retained earnings to each of those first segments, you will need a retained earnings account for each of those first segments, even if there's no activity in that first segment. So if you have a first segment 001 and 002 and 003, and you've done no data processing for 001, but you have for 002 and 003, you still need a retained earnings account for all three of them. If there's a GL account with that first segment and you're doing closed to divisional account segments, you'll want to make certain that you've got a retained earnings account for it. It doesn't break anything if you don't, but what it does do is it stops the close process and won't let you proceed until you create the account that's missing. And it'll just say, retained earnings account is missing. You also want to run a smart list, and on your smart list, you want to confirm your accounts. You want to make sure that the posting type is set up correctly. So you can run a smart list and check your posting type. It should either say balance sheet or it should say profit and loss. Make sure that all of those are correct. If you close the year with an account set up as profit and loss, it should have been balance sheet. What's going to happen is instead of the beginning balance rolling forward, what's going to happen is that account is going to close to retained earnings. It can be fixed. It's just time-consuming to fix. So just know that you want to check your posting type. You'll make sure everything is posted, and then you'll go ahead and close your fiscal period, sorry. You need to make sure that your fiscal periods are open as well. So in Great Plains, you're going to go to your fiscal periods, and make sure that you've got your new year, whatever it may be, created and open. So that way when the system makes the balance brought forward entry, it has a year in which to do it. All right. General ledger close, it moves P&L balances to retained earnings. It does a balance brought forward on the balance sheet. Now, people ask this question as well. They say, what if I need to make an audit adjustment? I don't want to close my general ledger until March after my audit. Well, you can always make a GL entry to the most recent closed year, or historical year rather. So if you close 2011 and your auditor says, here, make an adjustment to 2011, you can. But if you close 2011 and your auditor says, here, make an adjustment to 2010, if you've already closed 2011, you cannot. You can only go back 1 year. So there's no harm in closing 2011 whenever you feel like you're done with December's activity, as long as you don't have 2011 data remaining to enter. The tips for it are analytical accounting closes with general ledger. There's an option that needs to be set up for that. The option is in this latest version of GP 2010 R2. Without that option, it closes automatically with general ledger.